if the umpire says over, is it a point where are we going to get, if we're getting to this point, are we going to get to a point where we're going to have a bowler getting replaced halfway through the over by another bowler because he bowls better at him because he's just walked off? Well, it's nonsense, absolute nonsense. I just think from that point of view, I've worked so hard as a bowler to keep him down as non-strikers in. You've got somebody in who's got 50, who's batted nicely, going well. I'm making sure I bowl one side of the wicket. I've got four fielders on the leg side. If he hits me for six, I'm bowling to that plan. Fair enough, he's hit me for six. What shot? Great shot. But I'm trying to get one because the bloke coming in at the other end, right? Maybe on one, two, none, just come in or whatever. I'm going to bring my field up, take a chance, and bowl at him for three or four balls to change the game, the course of the game for my team. What happens if he walk? He can't walk off. He can't walk off. That's just not the right. It's not in the spirit of the game.
Okay, guys, great to see you. We haven't got George with us this week, but he will be back on England duty for the Cricketer magazine this week from Trent Bridge. Myself will be delivering updates throughout TalkSport, and I think Harmy might appear on the TalkSport Breakfast Show on Friday as well. So plenty going on, and there's been plenty going on in T20 as well, the domestic side of things. But first off, I want to talk about retirements, tactical retirements. That seems to be the big topic on social media this week, and maybe in the stands as well. I wouldn't know.
The Top Line.
Let's start with you first, Nick. Great to see you. So, the story this week essentially picked up from where the IPL left off, didn't it? The game between Birmingham and Nottinghamshire. Two very quick substitutions in a row. First off, Carlos Brathwaite took himself out of the batting lineup because he thought that his replacement, Sam Hain, could potentially hit a spinner last over better than he. And then an hour later or so, Samit Patel, with Nottinghamshire needing 3 runs to win, he basically substituted himself for somebody who could run faster. So, yeah, make of that what you will. But from your perspective, is this just an exciting new innovation that's been brought to the game? Or is it just open, essentially, for people to take the mick and it doesn't quite sit right with you?
I think it's an interesting one. What I would say first up is that it's not an innovation because it's there written in the rules and the laws of the game and the playing. This isn't. It's not as simple as taking advantage of something. It's or finding a loophole. Like it exists. Retired out has always existed. As an option for batting teams. It's not been. I mean, actually, I ironically actually think Sam Patel incident is closer to what happened in the Big Bash with Jordan Silk. I want to say who actually wasn't retired out, but he came in with a hamstring problem. Then they pulled him out for someone who was fully fit, I think, with a ball to go. That he was deemed retired hurt, so it didn't quite get the same coverage. But the first thing I say is I don't think it's what I find quite interesting is that I think we've been waiting for it to happen forever, haven't we? From a T20 perspective, certainly from when it felt like the T20 game in the last half decade has become, much more. I guess when marginal games become that much more central to T20 cricket, and teams have looked into every single way of finding that extra run, taking that extra wicket, so putting the very best men in the right positions, all that kind of thing. That I guess has always been done to an extent, but has really been honed in on in recent times in franchise cricket and T20 cricket. And as I say, when you know how fine the margins are, it was always a case of it's going to happen once, and then it would not necessarily open the floodgates, but it would allow it to happen more regularly. So I don't think it's a surprise that this has happened. Effectively in the first possible major tournament after Ravichandran Ashwin did it in the IPL. I don't love it. I just think, and I'm sure Harmy will agree with this, but I just think as a bowling team, as a fielding team, as a bowler, the one bit of the game that should be in your favour is the right to dictate who is who you've got at the crease. That's sort of in your favour, isn't it? You know, you're the bowling team, and actually, if you guys are, if you've I've not articulated that very well, but I think that's the one bit of the game in what is already a very batter-friendly game that I've always felt like should remain in the fielding team's control, and that it shouldn't be for the batters to line up the bowlers as they mark their run up to decide who they'd rather face. If you see what I mean. Otherwise, I don't know where. Yeah, I don't know. I'd say I don't quite know where I stand. I don't love it for that, mainly for that reason. But I'm also conscious that this isn't a loophole. This has been something that's been sat there unused, for a very long time. And obviously, in the longer forms of the game, you wouldn't take that option to retire someone out. It's very much geared towards, it's a short form dismissal, isn't it? Because where you're not worried about being bowled out, and it's very much looking at the next ball and the next over. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to know what Harmy thinks. I suspect you think similar in terms of, as a bowler, feeling like you deserve that bit of control.
I think it's up there with a Mankad, me. I think it's a shocker. I think it's an absolute shocker. You should be it should be used. The ball should be used. So if you're going to walk off, you can retire yourself out, but you use up a ball. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong in every single way. As a bowler, first of all, IPL innings are now nearly 2 hours. If you're going to have a revolving door of people coming on and off, because people talk about matchups in the shortest format of the game. If a batsman likes bowling, the art of captaincy is making sure you're bringing bowlers on who can affect the game at the next relevant point against the person who is at the non-striker's end or at the striker's end. If the umpire says over, is it a point where are we going to get, if we're getting to this point, are we going to get to a point where we're going to have a bowler getting replaced halfway through the over by another bowler because he bowls better at him because he's just walked off? Well, it's nonsense, absolute nonsense. I just think from that point of view, I've worked so hard as a bowler to keep him down as non-strikers in. You've got somebody in who's got 50, who's batted nicely, going well. I'm making sure I bowl one side of the wicket. I've got 4 fielders on the leg side. If he hits me for 6, I'm bowling to that plan. Fair enough, he's hit me for 6. What shot? Great shot. But I'm trying to get one because the bloke coming in at the other end, right? Maybe on 1, 2, none, just come in or whatever. I'm going to bring my field up, take a chance and bowl at him for 3 or 4 balls to change the course of the game for my team. What happens if he can't walk off? He can't walk off. That's just not the right. It's not in the spirit of the game. It's not right in the game. And when I look at what happened this week, I think that the ball should have. If you walk off, there's a delivery gone, and then all of a sudden, Carlos Brathwaite doesn't walk off. They got 16 off the last over. Brathwaite doesn't walk off with 5 balls to go. Sam Patel can't walk off because they need 3 to win off the last ball. And if there's a delivery used when you walk off, the game's over. He has to run the 3. So for me, something has to be. It's up there with. For me, as I'm speaking purely as a bowler, that this whole one-day white ball revolution has changed, and I sound like a Freddie Truman from the 1960s, in my day, and it goes back. But I tell you what, for me, it's up there with the Mankad, and it shouldn't happen. The game has gone so far in the batsman's favour, and I don't mind that because it's entertainment. But the skill and the art of bowling is to make sure that you can work within 6 balls to try and keep somebody at one end, to use your skills to try and change the course of the game for your team. You can't just have somebody walking on and off. The game's going to last 5 hours if they're going to keep doing that.
Harmy, as a Test cricketer, did you ever go off the field and allow maybe a younger, faster, better fielder than you on the pitch for a period?
I went to the toilet. I went to change my boots. I went there. We're talking about.
Did you run there and back?
An effect. I know you're gonna bring the Gary Pratt into the equation.
I know that Simon Jones was. Yeah, he was properly injured. Though. Yeah, I understand. I wasn't going to bring in Gary Pratt, but did you?
In the rules of the game, in the rules of the game, you've got to be off for a full over. So you have to be off for a full over. You can have 2 overs off to get to where that comes.
So
That's not changing.
So did you ever?
That's not changing the course of the game.
Did you?
He doesn't get a bat or a ball.
No, but he gets the field at point. Did you ever go off the field and finish your ablutions within an over, but then just think, I'll just stick around for another over and then trot back?
Well, you had the 2 overs to come off, and that was the third umpire would be in to get you back on the field. You had no real change of. I'd like to think if I was in the field and a catch came my way, I would catch it. I'm a competent fielder. I can catch it. So whether you bring another fielder on, they're not changing the dynamics of the game. They're not changing the dynamics of the game in that front. We're talking about somebody coming in to potentially hit 20 off and over to change the course of a game, and they're heavily involved in the game.
For me, it's that pursuit of. It's I guess in a positive light, it's a sign of the use of data, the use of analysis, how closely teams are looking at things. It feels like it's like that next step in pursuit of perfection, isn't it? And that's the thing that I think I struggle with slightly. That I think sport has to retain, and this is sometimes when when teams misuse matchups, it's almost like when you can become over dictated to at times or you allow yourself to be over dictated to by data at times. The effect of that is that you sort of stop using your own. You stop thinking about the game yourself, don't you? And sport still has to be about gut instinct. And as Harvey says, that if a guy's struggling what I don't like is the idea that someone is struggling at one end because you bowled really well at him, and then he just turns around and walks off. Because for me, that's just not. It's like in a game of football, if a guy's having a shocker, the board goes up, you take him off, you bring the sub on. That's all. That's all written into the laws of the game. It's you get 3 per game. It's just part of the course. But because we've never really had that in cricket, obviously we had certainly not real time substitution. Obviously there was that time of the super sub that existed in ODI cricket for a bit, didn't it? And we got concussion substitutes and that kind of thing. But real time changes based on performance. Obviously the bowler gets it at the end of each over through the captain. But for a batter to be able to turn around because he's struggling, I think that's the bit that I struggle to get my head around slightly, and that the bowling team has earned you being 14 not out of 25 balls in a T20 game. They've earned that because no matter how badly you're playing, they've almost certainly bowled in such a way that it stopped you scoring. If you don't want to be out there anymore, turn around and smack your stumps over. Run
Use
past
up the ball, walk off,
put your bat under. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't love it because I feel like it does go that step towards removing the emotion and the real time play from sport. But at the same time, I do sort of respect teams for doing it because, as I say, it's always been there in the regs. It's just been it was a case of waiting for someone to do it, and actually almost. It doesn't surprise me that it happened in a rain-affected game because you're not going to lose 10 wickets in 8 overs. So, I thought it made complete sense that the 2 teams did it when they did it. I thought it made complete sense when Sam Patel was pulled out, and I thought it made complete sense what Brathwaite did as well. I actually thought it showed a really clear head as well from a captain. Brathwaite's the captain to pull yourself in with an over to go when you're the guy with the reputation for clearing the ropes to death really shows the extent to which teams are thinking about every single ball in a game of T20 cricket or 8 over cricket as that was. I think we'll see it more in proper rain affected games as well, because I think, as I say, there is so little chance of being bowled out that if you've got a guy who's 10 off 13 balls in an 8 over game, you're screwing your team. So it makes complete sense for number 4 to just walk onto the field and number 3 to look up and see that his time's up. And as I say, while it's in the regs, I can 100% see why teams would take advantage of that. But I am with Harmy on that. I think if you're going to do it, there should be a delivery involved, especially if it is because you are retired out. Carlos Brathwaite is down as a fall of wicket on the scorecard, so I think that should count as a delivery.
Can I just ask a point of order, which I'm not 100% sure about? But so Carlos Brathwaite saw that a leg spinner was coming on, realised that his matchups didn't really tally with that, so took himself off.
Notch could have taken Calvin Harrison off and brought Seymour on once he'd walked off the field.
And then could
he can't come back.
But could not Sam Hain, Alex Davies, I think it was. Could he, once that he realised he's not going to face leg spin, could he then retire himself out, and then somebody else come in?
Well,
how many retired outs can you do?
Well, the thing I'd say that I'm conscious of not cheapening it. I think a lot of thought goes into it, and I don't think it's as. And we're not, we're talking about, Carlos Brathwaite. If you threw him 6 leg spinners, he would back himself 2 for 6. This isn't a guy, who sees a leggy come down and runs out the way. They're all high class professional cricketers. It's not a case of Alex Davis can't face, or I think it was Sam Hain that came out. It's not a case of Sam Hain not being able to face.
Yeah, Sam Hain.
Someone bowling quick and then call himself in. So I think that cheapens it slightly, because I do genuinely think a lot of thought goes into it, and that so it might, in the same way that a lot of thought goes into bowling changes, and you might bring someone on and it might not work, and then might get pumped, but that doesn't mean, but you wouldn't take yourself off, if you see what I mean. So I don't think Alex Davis would walk off because it's not the intended matchup for him. I think you just accept that it's not quite gone to plan and you get on with it. So I still think it will happen sparingly, and I think the fact that there was only one in the IPL and it's taken till now for one to happen, the Blast, does show that it's not going to be, teams aren't going to do it willy-nilly, because if you play on a tough deck and someone's 20 off 30, there's nothing to say that he's not the man best positioned to actually score on that pitch. If it's a tough pitch, it's going to take the next guy 10, 15 balls to get in anyway.
Well, so you might end up the other thing. If
it's 20 or 30 plus 15 balls, you might then be 27 or 40. As a pair, if you see what I mean.
It's unlikely to have ever happened, but how would you have felt if a batter had brought himself on because he fancied taking you on, basically?
I'd have loved it. Here we go. Let's go. Yeah, let's have a game. I'd have loved it.
Well, ironically, you sort of talked about that last week. Was it last week?
I know one thing. If it did happen to me, no matter whether it was in the shortest format or not, I'm not sure he would have gotten many in his half. And I would have said, good luck hitting these 90 mile an hour exocets at your helmet with 3 men back. If you hit 2 sixes, good on you, Matt. But they're coming. It would be a contest. It would get you going. But I just think, from that point of view, I just think, where does it stop? It gets farcical. And then, because, just to finish on it, like I said before, 2 hours to get an IPO. The regulations in this game now, the arrogance and the egos that have played the game at the shortest format, time constraint is not involved. Not involved at all. In top level sport, it's not involved. I watched a game of tennis between Nadal and Nadal the other day, and they were bouncing the ball 20 odd times just to wind each other up. The referee got in a little bit, but they weren't interested. They were not interested. You're not going to tell me what to do. Shot clock in the golf now. They're going, no, just find me. I'm not bothered. You're not going to tell me what to do. We're getting to a point where this is going to be farcical. If there's going to be people running on and off the field, the game is not the shortest format of the game anymore. It's going to last forever.
Although they are
switch people off.
Although it is a wicket though, so it's you're not going to have it. You're not going to have it would just count as a wicket. So I don't know that it would take that long. Just if as I say, Brathwaite couldn't come back out, he counts as one of the 10 he's out. So I don't know if it make it any longer than it already is.
Yeah, but you still hold the ball. So we do it 4 times. If we do it 4 times, that's like 4 wickets. Got 2.5 minutes. There's 10 minutes, and we still haven't bowled a ball.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see where you're coming from. Yeah. I am. Yeah. As I say, I don't love it, but while it exists, and I think it will exist, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by it more than anything else, because I think there are significant upshots potentially if it goes right for you. But I think you can also.
It's up there with a man can.
Well,
but this is the thing. Like, if you use it,
isn't it? Man-cat, they've changed the laws.
But what would be interesting is if you use it and then someone comes in. Let's say Brathwaite had used the. I mean, as I said, the 8 over games was the wrong example. But let's say you call someone in after the 9th over because he's struggling, and then the next lad's out. Then the next lad's out first ball. You've lost 2 wickets in 1 ball. So I don't think it'll be used that often, because I still think it's a massive risk, because you are, as I say, often you'll be calling guys in who are very good players who are probably struggling because it's not easy to score out there. And then if you bring a new lad in who's going to have to dig in and work his way around, work his way into the innings anyway, you could well end up having wasted a good portion of your innings trying to get two guys in when actually the bloke you've called back in may well have been pretty close to, to getting going. So if it's used in situations like with Patel and Brathwaite, I think that is the right time to use it. As I say, those really short games, I think will be interesting. I'm sure it'll happen a lot more now that they've done it.
Okay, shall we end this topic, because it has been a huge top line, and we'll move on to moments of the week.
Moments of the week.
Okay, guys. Well, at the start of the season, we confidently predicted solid campaigns for Surrey, for Lancashire and Nottinghamshire. They were the top three, weren't they? And certainly, if you look at the table, Surrey unbeaten, Lancashire unbeaten, and despite all the retirement shenanigans, Nottinghamshire, well, still absolutely in with a place in the top four. I don't think anybody's been ruled out yet, but not quite working for them quite as well as those other two big beasts, Nick. What do you put that down to?
They've just, it's weird. They've got going in sort of fits and starts. Something like when Alex Hales was, Alex Hales was on TV, wasn't he, against Derbyshire? He made 90 off 30, 91, I think 90 off 33. And I mean, you sort of watch them and wonder how they ever lose. But they've just not quite got going yet, have they? Like if you look at if you look at the lads who've got the big runs in the competition, historically you'd expect Hales, Clark, Hales, Clark especially, I guess, to be right up there at the top. I mean, Alex Hales has got 150 odd runs. I think they're about 20, 25 guys ahead of him, and I don't think there's anyone else close to him in that not side runs wise. I think Dan Christian got 50 last night. Steve Mullaney got 70 odd. Sorry, last night being recording Tuesday on Monday. They've just, I guess, without being old, very cliche about it, it's just the nature of T20 cricket, isn't it? That they've that seriously, I think as we've seen, most teams can beat each other. We talked last week about Leicestershire having that shocking start and then suddenly rocking up against Yorkshire with the most stacked top seven imaginable and beating them fairly comfortably.
Kent thrashing Middlesex this week.
Yeah, exactly. Kent, who couldn't win a game, and Middlesex who were flying, and then suddenly they, as you say, they properly beat them. I'm sure we'll talk about Joe Denley a bit later, but I just think it's, without giving a really boring answer, I think it's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? That they're still early enough that they can get back into it. Jake Bull's in the wickets, I think, as he was a couple of years ago. I think he was leading wicket taker, wasn't he, in 2020? I think he's got 11, and he's their top wicket taker with 11. He's 2 off Drake Lintott, I think, at the top. And so bits of the game are working. I just feel like they've probably not put together a complete game yet. I think even last night they were chasing 200 and they were 30 for 4. And actually that's been weird because, as I say, for such a stacked batting lineup, they found themselves. I think it was Lanks who bowled them out for 90. I think it was their lowest ever score at Trent Bridge. They were, I think, they were 10 for, was it 15 for 5 or something very early on, and that was, as I say, sort of pretty similar last night. They'd lost, I think against Lanks, they'd lost about 4 wickets before Alex Hales had faced a ball. They were 30 for 4 last night with Hales, Clark, Patel, Duckett all out, 50 for 5 with Tom Moore's out, and still got to 180 because the quality they've got all the way down. But yeah, I just don't think they've quite put together. They haven't put together the complete game that everyone knows they can do yet. But equally, they've got form for that in this competition. Weirdly, I mean, they should have walked their way to the final last year, but their way to the semis last year. But they lost. Do you remember they were flying against Hampshire, but managed to lose all that. But got spun out on a slow one at Trent Bridge, chasing 130, and managed to lose. That semi-final in 2019 when they were flying against Worcester, they managed to lose by 1. But then in between, they lost one game in 2020 when they won it. So they're funny, aren't they? You feel like they should walk every year, but they do stumble around at times.
Harmy, Graham Clark, brother of Jordan, top third in the list of highest run scorers. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, good player. He's done very, very well in the short format for Durham over the course of the last 4 years. He plays quite correct. Somebody that goes in the top, and he's got a good strike rate. He stands there, hits the ball nicely down the ground. He's a very, very powerful batsman through extra cover. and he is a good player. He's somebody who I think has made noises in the last 2 or 3 years in the shorts format, especially in 2020, of getting Durham off to a good start, along with young Jones, who's had a decent start to the sort of 2020 campaign as well. Durham have got a good side. But they haven't, like a little bit like Notts, they haven't really put too many perfect games together. And I think when the captain Ashton Turner got injured early on, I think that derailed Durham a little bit, because I think they'd set the stall out overseas sort of batsman, and then all of a sudden I'm not sure if he dislocated his shoulder or he did something to his shoulder, and they had to bring in Andrew Tye, who was a different type of cricketer, a very good cricketer for Australia, but a different type of cricketer. And it just changed the sort of balance of the Durham side. But Clark's a good player, along with what they've got, likes of Bedingham and others. Durham haven't got a bad side, but the 2020 so far, look, Nick was mentioning about Notts. For 14 games, you can have a slow start and then hit your straps. Last 4 or 5 games, manage to get into the last spot of quarterfinals, and then you're on a roll going into finals day. So Notts have been a surprise, and Hampshire have been a surprise. Hampshire only got 2 points so far this season, but they've got obviously 1 game less than some others in the South Division. But you look at the 2 top teams of each group. I know we're not supposed to talk about Surrey on following on county cricketer, but Surrey looks strong, and in Lancashire looks strong, and Liam Livingstone. What an outfit that is! You Chuck Parkinson back in, who's back in for being released from a test squad to go and play. That powerhouse of, I'll miss people out here: Salt, Bottler, Livingstone. Jennings has been scoring runs for them. Villas has been scoring runs for them. Tim David. That is some side, and you chuck a leg spinner in it. If they can get to finals day, I tell you what, they'll take some beating.
I think also that John, just very quickly on something that Harmy touched on there with, I guess, not having to start well. I think what's quite interesting this year as well is because it's effectively being played in a block, momentum has become, almost sort of peaking at the right time is more important than it has been in the past. I think previous years has been a bit of a lottery, because you win the group, then you have to wait a few weeks for your quarter-final, then you've got to wait a few more weeks for finals day, by which point, Rashid Khan has never gone to finals day with Sussex, and yet he's almost, he's done a big part of getting them there every year. But because of that gap, you almost go in and you're sort of cold when, you almost can't carry the impetus you take from your early wins into the latter stages. So actually this year, even if you Kent, having lost their first, they won it last year, lost their first 5 this year, were pretty ropey. Until they beat Middlesex, and Joe Denley got 40 or 46 balls against Surrey, and then suddenly got 100 or 50 balls the next game. And it only takes that knock to sort of spin their campaign back sort of into life. But this year, they're going to have to win 7 of their last 10 or so to make it into those last stages. But if they can do that, then they're probably best placed, because actually they can forget about the first 5 and they'll have that momentum behind them. And then if you win your quarter final, the change around from quarter final to finals day this year is hardly anything, which is, I think, is massively significant, because in the past it's been pretty frustrating for teams who've dominated the early stages, and then if you take Essex when they won it in 2019, were shocking through the first half of the competition, managed to just about sneak into qualify, then had a very, very good day on finals day, having got to finals day and won it, whereas teams who'd started really well had sort of tailed off by then.
Yeah, the final day is the middle of July, isn't it? 16th of July or something, so it's going to go pretty much all the way through. I want to talk to you about a guy that you must have played against, actually, Harmy. Michael Hogan, who plays for Glamorgan. He hadn't bowled since 2019, and he's in the one of the leading wicket takers. I saw him take 3 or 4 wickets against Surrey in a game that Surrey actually won. That was a crazy old game, by the way, Nick, wasn't it? We were both there for that one. He took 3 or 4 wickets against Sussex the night before, and it just showed he's 41, Harmy. So, still, you've got the boots there, you got a bat behind you, got a helmet or 2, pluck one of those balls.
Yeah, but my boots might fit me, my gloves fit me to hold the bat, but I don't think anybody's got a shirt big enough to fit me at this minute in time, the way they wear these skin tight shirt. I'm not sure I've actually played against Michael Hogan. I think I've only played against. If I played against him, it was for Western Australia against England in a warm up game in 2002-3. I think that's the only time I would have come against him. I think I was finished when he came over to England.
Really? Okay.
But it's great to see. It's great.
He's a really cool story
Go on.
because he only made his first class debut at 28. He was. I spoke to him about this a couple of years ago.
I wouldn't have played against him.
No, you wouldn't have done. So 2003, he was playing pub cricket in rural New South Wales, council worker. I believe he was a groundsman for the local council. Did all sorts of odd jobs. It's got a really weird story. It's a mental story. He got a call out the blue from Tom Moody offering him a trial, and he still doesn't know who tipped off Tom Moody. He went to Western Australia. He went to the trial, and then suddenly 2 days later was a professional cricketer, and then moved over here in 2008 for a Didier Glamorgan. Has obviously never left, and I think he must have had a UK passport. I could have that wrong, but he was a proper late developer. So he was 28 when he started. Glamorgan legend. I think this is his final year now. But yeah,
the testimonial.
With Tim Merton.
His testimonial year, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it got postponed through COVID. And Tim Merton had this, I think, a couple of years ago, where he had not played T20 cricket for ages, and they sort of threw him back in because he was short on seamers, and the wily old stagers sort of know what to do. I think even Toby Brown-Jones has done this year. I know he's certainly not as old, but he's just run in and hit back for length. And I suspect I've not seen much of. I don't think I was at that Surrey Glamorgan game, but I've not seen much of. I've not seen Hogan bowl in the blast this year, but I suspect he's been sort of hitting back for length with that action of his, and I guess but yeah, and it's just cool to see him up there, isn't it? As I say, someone with his story who didn't think he'd be a professional cricketer when he was 27 and a half, and then suddenly at 28 was, suddenly at 41 is 500, 600, 700 wickets for Morgan.
The thing with it is he's tall and he knows where he's landing it, and because of his experience, wily customer knows where he's going. In 2020 cricket, somebody so tall gets the most out of his action. You look at somebody like Jason Holder, who no pace whatsoever, does brilliantly in 2020 cricket because he's very, very difficult to hit off a length and difficult to hit through the line of the ball and line up because of the amount of steeple and bounce he gets, especially in England surfaces where the ball sometimes sits in. So I think because of that, he's very difficult to get after, and players now just think it's got to be every ball's got to go out the ground. And when it comes from a bowler's point of view, he's a very, very good, cool customer who knows what he's doing with it. And there are these young upstarts who think, 41-year-old bowling 78, 79 mile an hour, I'll belt him out of the park. And before you know it, three of them have come unstuck and managed to find themselves caught on the boundary.
Yeah, I think Naveen Al-Haq's not dissimilar in height, is he? He's a gun, isn't he? He took 5 for against Worcester. He was top wicket taker last year. A very wily bit of recruitment by Leicester that was last year, actually, and did very well to keep him as well, I suspect. So I'm sure I'd be surprised if they were the only team that were looking at him this year too.
What about Obed McCoy? One of Jared's favourite players, Harmy? He had him when Jared was over in St Lucia. Just played fresh from the IPL, and he's hit the ground running. 5 wickets, 5 for 33 against Somerset, 4 for 30 against Middlesex, and he picked up one against Hampshire as well. So, that's quite an introduction.
It is an introduction. I thought he was brilliant in the IPL. The games I've seen for Rajasthan, at the back end as well. I think he's a cool customer. Obviously, from the Caribbean, there's been a huge influx into the IPL from the Caribbean. And he's, like you say, he's hit the ground running when he's got here, and he's bowled nicely. And that left arm option that everybody loves in T20 cricket, we've got on TalkSport 2, we've got Holland, England, and England are going to Holland. I know it's in 50 over competition, but they're going with 5 left arm seamers because they're trying to get that left arm option nailed down for the World Cups when they're coming around like thick and fast round the corner in the winter, and then obviously next winter. England are seeing that in the shortest format of the game, the left arm option is hugely valuable. And Obed McCoy he's a real deal. He is a special talent. The problem he's got is finding a place in the West Indies side, because he's done wonderfully well for for Rajasthan in the IPL, done so well so far in the Blast. But the West Indies have got a huge stock of fast bowlers. He's fighting to get into the national team as well.
Okay, well, let's move track then. We were just talking about getting into the England squad, and I think we're going to have to change the feature. Instead of Race to Amsterdam, it's going to be Race to Australia, because that's what it's all about. So let's have a little look at those involved.
Race to Australia.
Well, I know I'm not allowed to speak about Surrey, but Surrey are about to lose quite a few players, aren't they? Jason Roy, Sam Curran, and Reece Topley. Ollie Pope's already up with the England Test squad. But I want to talk about Sam Curran because he does feature. He's in the top 10 in terms of top run scorers, or at least he was on Tuesday. This is going out on Thursday. But what role do you see him playing for England, Harmy, in the 50 over game? And do you think also he's going to have a role in the 20 over game, possibly, for that World T20 that takes place in Australia at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think he'll get a role in the T20 game. The one thing I would say with Sam at this minute in time, because of Sam's career and the way it's gone, trying to find a place for him in the Test side, trying to find a place for him in the one-day side. Going to Holland, he has to play. If he doesn't play, just leave him at Surrey, because he's going brilliantly at the minute. He's taking wickets. He's bowling his 4 overs. He's coming back from an injury. He's scoring runs. I would imagine Sam Curran, I don't know the boy, I would imagine he's loving life at this minute in time after a horrendous sort of 6-8 months that he's missed a lot of cricket. Now, does he fit into England's 50 over side, bowling 10 overs and batting at number 7 or number 8? Because let's be fair, if you look at that England one-day side, he ain't getting in the top 6. He's not getting in the top 6. And whether Moen bat 6 or Moen bat 7, I just wonder what role they're going to use him on. Does he feature as the sort of all-rounder with Ben Stokes not being there, and with Moen at 6 and Sam Curran at 7? I hope that's what they're going to do and going to use him, and then he doesn't have to bowl his full 10 overs because he's coming back from an injury. England play 3 seamers, the 2 spinners, and Sam. I'd like to think they'd use him in that way, because if they're not going to use him going over to Holland, you could play 4 Blast games and keep his sort of development back into cricket, and the momentum going. What I wouldn't like to see is Sam Curran go to Holland for a week and not play cricket, because at the minute he's going brilliantly and he has had an injury, and I think he's probably enjoying life for the first time in 6-8 months. So that would be my only sort of caution of Sam Curran and Holland. If he's not got a role, then leave him where he is.
What about his new ball partner at Surrey? You say talking about left armers. It's little and large, isn't it? Reece Topley, I think he's the top wicket taker for Surrey this year. And of course, he was part of England's T20 squad in the World T20 2016. It was a very successful tour of the Caribbean, which we covered on TalkSport back in February. And of course, coming with his high out and out wicket taker, taking the bowling in the power play. What do you think? What do you think to Reece? Do you think he's going to have a future within 50 and 20 over?
I think he's in pole position. Of all the ones that England are taking, I think he's in pole position. He's the one. I think Owen Morgan wants to go into both World Cups with Reece Topley as his main left-arm seamer. I think the reason why they've got that many is because you look at the shortest format, Tamil Mills, you don't know what you're going to get one day at the next from a body position. Execution of plans, delivery of skills, no question whatsoever with Mills. Is he going to wake up the next morning and be fit enough to play? That's always going to be and I think Topley's the same, but I think he's getting better and better from a durability point of view. I actually think Reece Topley is in pole position to play in the big games for England from Morgan's point of view. I think he's the one he wants.
I think I'd love Reece Topley to
be a bowler who could bowl for 15, 20 overs in a day, because if he is fit enough to do that, I think he'd be an outside chance of a Test game, because I think he's that good. He's that skillful. He hits the deck hard. He's got enough pace to get going. He swings the ball, but he's obviously his body just lets him down. If he could bowl the longer format, I don't think he'd be too far away from Test match in all formats of England, because I actually think he's that skillful and that good.
No, I was just going to add on that is obviously I think with the T20 World Cup in Australia, I think that does probably play into Topley's hands as well, just purely from of all those 5 or 6 left armers they've got, knowing how little the white ball moves, Topley's height, extra bounce, extra bit of pace, probably certainly compared to Curran, Payne, to be honest, probably all bar Mills, I guess. He's probably got that on them as well. So I can see that playing to his hands. I actually think Sam Curran, I think actually what we've seen talking about the England Test side, the lack of sort of the imbalance from 8 downwards, I think does also highlight Curran's the importance of Curran. If they can, once he's fully fit and played a few bowled in first class cricket for Surrey as well, because all the talk of 4 number 11s and stuff, Sam Curran is smoking it at the moment. I mean, I was at the Oval when he made 6 off 2. But
that was the game we were at together,
Gloucestershire. But but I've also I've seen get so many runs the Championship this season. Just weirdly, still doesn't have a first class 100, which is a strange little quirk knocking around at the moment. But he just looks, even without his bowling, a tremendously confident cricketer at the moment. And I think I've got a lot of time for David Willey. Got a lot of time. I really like Tamar Mills if he can, if he's fit, and which he. Hopefully will be. I think his injury got I think the injury he picked up at the IPL was extremely minor. I think the injury he picked up at the T20 World Cup was, I think, different from ones he's had in the past, which was, I think I've got that right. But once again, wasn't a major thing. It was just annoying because it ruled him out at the time. But and David Payne's been in a lot of squads. Well, been in a few squads now, hasn't played yet. I think he's another one who almost needs to be picked at some point in the Netherlands, because otherwise you're taking someone around with you who's a 30. I think he's 30, and he's been around the circuit for a very long time. If you're going to pick him in these squads, you might as well give him a go, see what you think of him. So I think it was the same with George Garton through last summer in the winter, and obviously I think he played a single T20 in the West Indies, and has since, I think, been sort of trying to deal with long COVID actually. But yeah, I think it's important that it feels like they've taken all these guys to the Netherlands almost as an audition, isn't it? Sort of 4 or 5 left armers, almost. They all offer different things, which I think help. But I'd certainly think Topley would be the one you'd look at for Australia, just because of what he offers from a trajectory perspective. And I think being different from, depends what we don't know how fit Jofra Archer's going to be and guys like that. So we actually don't know what the seam. If the seamers are Mark Wood and Sakeem Mahmood, if those two are fit, then you actually could do with someone who's 6'6" and offers that extra bit of height too. So I guess, but also we are obviously a very long way away from that, given how quickly the seamers can go down injured, as we've seen in the last few weeks.
Just to finish on Sam Curran, I would have been tempted to chuck him into Trent Bridge this week, because if they're going to go without a spinner, if I was Ben Stokes, I'd rather have Sam Curran than Craig Overton at number 8.
There's no point having 5 right arm seamers, is it?
They're all similar pace. Yeah, but he doesn't really have to bowl that much, to be fair, because you've got the 3 out and out seamers and your two fill-in bowlers, not fill-in bowlers, but fill-in overs of Curran and Stokes, and it gives you a good balance at number 8.
Well, I think that's a topic that we can pick up next week. Bearing in mind, we'll see how England do at Trent Bridge. That gets underway on Friday. There's a full fixture list of T20 cricket on Friday. Surrey against Middlesex, the standout one personally. But they're coming thick and fast, and we're going to be covering all of them here on Following On County Cricketer. Nick and Harmy, thanks so much for your time, and thanks for your time as well. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a question. We'll answer it next week. If you're listening on TS2, TalkSport 2, or on the Following On podcast, get involved at any of our Twitter handles, and we'll be sure to answer your questions. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Following On County Cricketer.